So thank you for joining us. And our workshop mission is to really help people get more from the technology that you already have, introduce you to new technologies that you need to know about. There's so much going on in technology all the time, it's impossible to stay up with everything, and that's really our job. We're researching new things. For call clarity, this is a listen-only call, but we will follow up with any questions after. So with security, you can't pick up a newspaper or turn on the TV without hearing about the threats that are out there. And there's a lot of scary news out there, and we're going to help kind of sort your way through it to figure it all out. But some of these headlines will probably look familiar. There was a hospital in the LA area that was hit with a $17,000 ransomware request. There's a lot of talk right now about the Internet of Things and all the risks that are involved with things like web-enabled cameras, even web-enabled thermostats. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce was hacked through a Nest thermostat not too long ago. So these kind of things are just going to continue to grow. If you read about corporate data breaches, it's almost a who's who. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when folks will get hit. UPS, Target, Home Depot, Sony, these are all the ones, the big businesses tend to, they're going to wind up in the news, they're recognized names, but the threats are just as real for small business. And that's something that we need to all keep in mind. And the big threat that's out there these days is ransomware. So ransomware is a kind of malicious software that gets on a system, and old viruses used to slow down your system. They were annoying. There were things like keyloggers, but ransomware kind of takes it all to a new level, because what it does is the virus gets on your system, locks up your system so you can't get access to your data. It will take your files, encrypt them, and then a horrible warning comes up on your screen and says, if you want your files back, you got to pay us money. And the WannaCry attack that just happened a couple of weeks ago really was a wake-up call for a lot of people. This stuff has been going on for a long time. WannaCry did so much damage, it really made international news. So it's yet another variant of ransomware, kind of theme and variations of things that have been going on for a long time. And what you wind up with is this warning sign on your screen that says, oops, your files have been encrypted, you can't get to your files. And it really did a lot of damage worldwide. In London, you might have read this in the paper, in the National Health Service in the UK, people were being turned away from the hospital. There were refrigerators that were keeping blood at temperature that was put at risk. Surgeries were canceled. A huge disruption. This impacted lives. And just to show how indiscriminate this ransomware is, it was requesting a $600 ransom. So and you might think about that a bit. The reason behind that is that these threats are all automated for the most part, but they will get more sophisticated. But this one caused so much damage, and it really woke up people to what's going on in cybersecurity. So the way this all starts, I'll give you a little bit of the technology that's happening behind these threats and show how they're evolving. Is that first, there was a Microsoft vulnerability that was discovered, and if you think of how complex modern software is, there's always loopholes, thousands of lines of code, there's loopholes in there. So hackers are out there trying to find out what they are and see how they can exploit them. The software vendors, Microsoft, Adobe, etc., are all looking at their software. They'll get reports from the white hat hackers who will report the vulnerabilities, and they patch them. So that's why these patches come out all the time. And we're a broken record on security patches. Microsoft releases them every month. You need to keep your systems up to date. But this is just a reality. It's not that the software is so complex, there are vulnerabilities, and people are actively looking at them. But that in combination is, you have other efforts. The NSA has developed tools where basically in their cyber war, their efforts have created tools to help spread certain viruses. What happened is that some of those tools were released on the dark web. So you have this combination of these vulnerabilities that are detected, tools that are just on the dark web. You don't have to be a sophisticated hacker to get these, and they package them up as a worm. So that's what made the threat so pervasive. Instead of just one attack on a system, it went as a worm throughout the network and did a lot of damage. So there's a couple of different variations of the name, WannaCry, WannaCrypt. Basically, it was using that eternal blue vector to get out to a lot of systems, and did actually more damage. Each wave of ransomware gets worse and worse. Like some of them just affect the files. Some of them actually go after the backup files. So even your backup is not safe. Some of them go after network share. So they're pervasive in the network, and they're asking for a ransom. In this case, it was initially 300, then it increased to 600, and these are getting more specific as well. There's much higher ransom numbers once people figure out what the organization is. The damage was widespread, 150 countries, businesses everywhere, names that you've heard of. There were big billboards. If you looked at kind of the way the attack worked over the weekend, from Friday throughout the weekend, kind of went from the Far East to the UK, and it didn't have as much impact in the US, and I'll get to that in a moment, but there are pictures online of giant billboards that just had the WannaCry ransomware request up there, because everything's computerized, everything's connected, and it really shows how devastating these threats are. And it actually could have been a lot worse. So what happened through the weekend, there was a solo security consultant who was kind of looking into the code, trying to figure out how it was working, and noticed there was somewhere in the line of code, there was a request to go to a certain website and a certain URL, and he said, well, I wonder what that is. So he went and realized it wasn't registered, so he just, well, I'm going to register it. And it turns out that was the kill switch. And that was almost just by random luck, but that actually prevented a lot more damage from being done. And I've sat in on a number of security briefings over the last couple of weeks, and drilling into more detail, there's a lot of lack of automation within this. So this threat, as bad as it was, actually could have been a lot worse. So that's something to really think about. Sometimes folks think of these hackers as, you see them in the movies, and they're sitting in the basement with the hoodie on and hacking. This stuff is all automated now. So just as you have software as a service, you might use Salesforce.com, a lot of online tools. The ransomware as a service is a thriving business. It's all illegal, and it's all on the dark web, but this is something I got from OpenDNS. It's written in Russian, and it's just basically I have an overstock of these installs, and you can buy them. So people buy and sell these. They're making money off of it, and they're just going to keep doing it. And the threats have gotten really sophisticated. No one is under the radar for these. And there were 2,900 new variations of ransomware just in 2016. So this is just going to keep growing. And the way, when the ransomware hits, you won't necessarily know anything is going on right away. And this is a little example of something that comes through an email, and we're going to get into more depth on this. But it just says, oh, I can't open this file. You need to update Adobe Reader. Kind of all seems usual, but then all your files are rewritten in the background. And it usually will run for a while before it puts up the warning so that it does the most damage. So initially, you may not even know anything is going on. And there's all kinds of variations of the threat. So this, earlier this year, a very fancy Austrian hotel was hit by ransomware, and it locked all the guests. It basically shut down their computerized key access. And they actually got hit twice, and then decided to go back to old-fashioned physical keys after that. So the threats just keep changing. And no one is immune from this. You may have read in the past the Tewksbury Police Department here in Massachusetts was hit with ransomware and actually paid the ransom. Another police department, Swampscott, was hit in the past. No one is immune. And it's mobile too. The attack vectors are going after everything. So there's an increasing threat of risk of threats coming through on mobile devices. And a question that we get all the time, well, gee, Macs are immune. No, they're not. There just aren't as many Macs out there. But ransomware as a service is now targeting Macs. This is a headline from earlier this month in ZDNet. Everyone's at risk. There's no way to hide from this. So that's where protection comes into place. So when we think about cybersecurity, we kind of think about it in three ways. One is protection. We're also thinking about detection and then recovery. So the key thing here is there's absolutely no such thing as 100% security. There's nothing you can do short of powering off all of your electronics, locking them away to not be at risk for these kind of threats. But there is a lot that you can do. And what we advise is to think about security as layers. So if you think about this as almost like bulletproof glass, like normal glass is one layer, bulletproof glass is basically a bunch of polycarbonate layers together, and together they're strong. It's not that one layer is so strong, it's that everything together. And that's why you need to have multiple layers of security, and that's what we're going to go through in this presentation. So the 9 ways that you can prevent a cyber attack are, and we're going to kind of go through them one by one, and the real theme here is no layer is 100%. There's no silver bullet. There's no way that you can 100% protect any network, but you can make it a lot safer. You can increase your odds. So just kind of going through, the first one that we recommend as a best practice is to run a security filter on your mail. A lot of threats do come through mail. A lot of them are carefully written that they won't be caught specifically by spam filtering, so they still can get through. But just to give you some numbers, last month, on behalf of our customers, we blocked over 1.1 million spam messages for the clients who are doing email security through us. And what we advise is that you use one filter, and you filter everything in one place before it gets to all your devices. And this makes it a lot more efficient to manage. You know, as you know, within Outlook, you can run a junk folder there. You can run different things in different places, but it's great to just have one filter. You can go to your quarantine report, see what you're missing. That could be centrally administered too, so you can help other users in the system. So that's our advice on that. Extremely important, huge volumes of mails, and not just from the security perspective, the productivity perspective is also really important to consider. Passwords. Using strong passwords, I think when we talk about passwords and security patches, I know it sounds really boring to a lot of people, but really strong passwords are such an important component of your layers of security. So strong passwords at a minimum 8 characters, uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, symbols. We advise that for sites with more than just a few users that you're using Active Directory protocols on your server to basically enforce password policy, because you might tell people you can't have a 3-letter password, but they might go do it. With server policy, you can actually dictate that to all your users. Absolutely never a word in the dictionary. Changing passwords regularly. Don't share passwords. Don't use the same password for different apps. And that's when one site is breached, a lot of times they'll use those passwords to try to go after other sites as well. So that's why you don't want to use the same passwords. More and more of our clients now are asking us to roll out password managers for them, just to help keep track of everything in one place securely. So that's something to think about. But passwords, as basic as it is, really important. One of the interesting things that happen when a site gets breached, sometimes they'll publish passwords, and you can kind of get visibility to what the popular passwords are. So these are this was from a breach maybe a couple years ago at this point, but these were the most popular passwords in order from that breach. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that was the most popular password. So basically, if you see any of your passwords on this list, change your password right now. You should not be using any of these passwords. Okay, moving along now on another thing you can do to help protect your network is computer updates. So that's Microsoft, and it's not just Microsoft. Microsoft is sort of the most high profile, but it's Java, Adobe, all the other applications, call them third-party applications on your systems, and Macs, as we said. And here I want to highlight from the Mass Data Security Law, and this is verbatim. For files containing personal information on the system that's connected to the internet, you must have reasonably up-to-date firewall protection and security patches. So this is actually required by law in Massachusetts and basically across all states. Industry-specific regulations like HIPAA, et cetera, require this. Okay, moving along, another thing to focus on in your layers of security is end-user training. So an IBM study found that 95% of data breaches are caused by human mistakes. I was listening to a cybersecurity expert from the FBI talk about this, and basically somebody did something that shouldn't have happened if there's a security problem. So it could have been the weak password, but a lot of times it's users, more and more, it's users who are opening up what's known as phishing emails. So that's a really prevalent attack vector. In years past, you'd have to go to maybe a questionable website, but now even there's drive-by viruses on good, reputable websites because they're not really controlling what the ad servers are doing. But I would say phishing attacks are probably the most common attack vector. Mass data security law, I'm just highlighting this because the law specifically requires the education and training of employees on proper use of computer security systems and the importance of personal information security. So Massachusetts put that law in effect to help prevent basically identity theft. And it is a reminder, it is the law, it is extremely important because we work with hundreds of businesses, probably thousands of users at this point, and we still see when somebody does get a virus, you look back, it's like, you opened up an email, it didn't maybe look like you shouldn't have done it, but without that training in place, and how do the users know? Because most of the time they're not really being careless, they're trying to do their job, and they're being tricked. So it's estimated that 50% of all internet users will open a phishing attack within a given year. And to look at what some of those are, and again, emphasizing why employee training is so important. So, getting on a call like this, ask us for a copy of the slides. We do blog posts. You have to do at least something. But a scan from a scanner, U.S. Postal Service, the missed package delivery. So here's one. Somebody gets this notification, and I don't have time to deal with it, forwards it to their assistant. Take care of this package. Now the assistant is getting it from a reputable source. ACH notifications for payroll. Sometimes the payroll, it would be a fake email with an ADP payroll report. And somebody thinks, oops, hey, I got this by mistake. Nobody knows I have this. I'm going to just open up this report and see what's in there. And that's a honeypot kind of threat, but there's all kinds of theme and variations. They're very clever. Years ago, these were so easy to spot. They're becoming more and more sophisticated. The fake Verizon wireless bill. You get a big bill, and you immediately want to know, how did that happen? What they do now? And next thing you know, you have a virus on your system. So this is one of the techniques. Here's one, a fake one from American Express. And it sounds like it's online and verification to reinstate the account security. So it sounds like it's really important. But if you hover over the link, never click on the link. I hovered over this link just to show what it shows. It goes to a completely different place. So that's something like maybe the average user doesn't know, is that you can make, like that looks like, hey, it's americanexpress.com, reinstate, better get on that right away. But if you can spoof any link. It's very easy to do, and you can easily be fooled. So you can hover over a link to look at it, but also just call. If you get something from a credit card company, just call the number on the card. Don't even listen to what the email says. Here's another one. This is a mailbox is full. So if your mailbox fills up, this looks like a real message from the mail administrator, and you got to clean up your mailbox or ask for more storage space, because as soon as your mailbox fills up, you don't get any more mail. It's really inconvenient. So that's, again, it's like the sense of urgency. You want to act on it right away, and a user might not know. It says just, click on this link. It looks so easy to add more storage to your mailbox. And that looks like, without knowledge of what the real request would look like or the real process, somebody might think, oh yeah, let me just take care of this right now. And, to kind of put that in perspective is John Podesta from the DNC actually fell for this. That whole leaked email thing during the election was he clicked on a link to change his password. It was the same sort of routine phishing thing that probably everybody on this call has at one point gotten in your mailbox, and hopefully you knew not to click on it, but he clicked on it, revealed his password, and then all those emails were revealed. So it's very smart people can fall for these tricks without being very aware. Here's another one that's very widespread is resumes. So if you ever put an ad out, to a job board, Monster, or any one of those places, you might wind up with a whole bunch of resumes. If you're hiring and you're sorting through them, you got to maybe sort through 100 of them. So that's just another common attack vector. It's a fake resume. And if you're not hiring at that moment and you get something from somebody you never heard of, you're probably going to be aware, like, oh, this is not something I'm going to open up. But if you are in the process of hiring and you are getting a flood of 100 emails a day of resumes, you could likely fall for this. Here's another one with the U.S. Postal Service fake delivery. Again, if these are forwarded, they become really dangerous because the person who gets them as the forwarded message, hey, take care of this for me, is not going to be as vigilant. Another really important one that everyone in your organization needs to be aware of is the fake wire transfer request. And I spoke to a local bank manager who said he personally knew of two people who lost their jobs over this, that they had gotten an email that looked like, it was spoofed to look like it was from their boss, said, hey, can you take care of this wire transfer request? Need it done today. Can you help me? Good employee says, of course, boss. I'm right on it. And after you wire transfer that money, you can't get it back. You initiated the wire transfer. Even though you were tricked, you can't get the money back. So that's, again, I think banks are doing a lot to educate people about this. But again, something everybody in your organization needs to be aware of. Okay, and moving along the list into advanced security. In years past, you put antivirus on a system and that's just what you needed. And then there's anti-malware. Again, thinking layers. And often we get this question in our standard managed services platform, which is really about addressing all these cybersecurity layers. People ask, well, I already have an antivirus. I don't need that other stuff. Like, you need multiple layers because one tool might be very good at getting a certain kind of threat, but another tool kind of fills the gap. And takes care of other things. So antivirus, anti-malware, we standardize on WebRoot and Malwarebytes for these tools. The other layer that we put into play on our standard service offerings is Cisco Umbrella. That's formerly OpenDNS. It's been known in the industry as OpenDNS for a long time, but Cisco Umbrella now. And what that is another layer of protection to kind of look at almost on each device, look at where the traffic is going to. And again, on this page, I highlight mass data security law requires up-to-date antivirus definitions on your system. Again, it is required by law. So getting into, again, another layer in this equation is you got your antivirus protecting your endpoint, you have your anti-malware software protecting your endpoint, you have all your security patches keeping everything up to date and protecting your endpoint. And what Cisco Umbrella does is starts looking at traffic that might be coming from a system. So for example, this is a lot like fraud prevention on a credit card. If all of a sudden your system is communicating to some server that it doesn't normally communicate to, it's going to flag Cisco Umbrella. So basically, web traffic from all over the world is being monitored, like billions of transactions, and they look for certain patterns. So it's looking for the predictive intelligence, just like, hey, you might get a call from your credit card company saying, did you just buy furniture in St. Louis? And the answer is no if you're here in Massachusetts. This is kind of a similar thing. And what it does, too, and very important for mobile devices, is it protects when your mobile devices leave the four walls that your firewall is protecting. So what it's going to look at is the intelligence of looking at millions of data points of where traffic goes. If all of a sudden traffic starts like being routed to some server in Russia, it's going to capture that and flag it and block that traffic as a potentially malicious site. So it's going to catch it a lot earlier before other tools might see it. And they kind of all work together. But this is a really important layer of security. Moving along, we kind of briefly touched on this. So the firewall, so number 6 on the list of the 9 things, is, people ask, what does a firewall do? And I give this example because I did it yet again, is we get stock photos when I'm preparing a blog or writing an article. I'll occasionally get stock photos, and there's a site that we use, 123RF. And if you accidentally type it backwards, RF123, it goes someplace totally different. And thankfully, we have a sonic wall in place with comprehensive gateway security. So for that common misspelling of the URL I was trying to get to, it just blocked me and said, oh, this connection is trying to go to China. It just stopped me. It wouldn't even let me go there. So that's kind of in a nutshell. I felt like this picture kind of describes exactly what a firewall does. It protects you against the traffic that you don't want to have. And we get questions a lot, like somebody might say, well, why do I need a sonic wall? I have Verizon 5, so they put in a firewall. Well, that's a firewall, but it doesn't nearly have all the features and intelligence that's built into a business class security device. So yes, it's a firewall, but it doesn't have the geo filtering, it doesn't have all the other features that you want to have in place. You can block traffic, you can change how traffic is analyzed through certain sites, so you can improve the efficiency of your traffic. Very important to have a business class firewall. Up-to-date firmware is required by law, so that's something to not ignore. Moving along, encryption. Mass data security law, again, to the extent feasible, encryption of all transmitted records and files containing personal information that travel across public networks have to be encrypted. What this boils down to is don't email protected information. And encryption is required for all personal information stored on laptops or other portable devices. And the important thing to remember here is that password protection is not the same as encryption. So if you have a Windows password on your laptop, anyone could take that hard drive out of your laptop, plug it into another system, and basically read what's on that drive. Encryption is really a totally different standard. Encryption is sort of like taking all that data, putting it into a cross shredder, and then the encryption key sort of shreds it, and then like a magic wand makes it come back together again. Encryption and password protection are different. Mass data security law, HIPAA, and many other security regulations require this. Also, once you get into regulations like HIPAA, the reporting requirements are different. If, for example, a laptop is stolen from your organization but it's fully encrypted, you're not required to report. So any little thing like a thumb drive, portable drive, they have to be encrypted. Okay, then moving along to number 8 on the list, backup. Again, lots of layers, a lot to think about, but important to think about how all of these protections work together. So we talked at the beginning about prevention, detection, and recovery. So the key thing to remember is prevention and detection cannot be 100%. It's not possible to have 100% security. So what you want is to really stack the deck in your favor, increase your odds, but you will most likely at some point have to worry about recovery. And recovery could be it could be from a cyber threat, it could be from a failed system, it could be from a loss. Loss can happen in a lot of different ways. So the really important thing to remember, and when we meet with clients, we try to kind of get this point across. Backup is about, can you recover your data? And continuity, disaster recovery is about how fast you can operate again. And that's a really important thing to think through. So we ask folks to think about a recovery time objective based on your ability to tolerate downtime and the associated costs. So, for example, if you have a consumer class like Carbonite Backup, you might have everything backed up, but it may take, because of the distributed nature of where the data is, it may take 2 weeks to get it back. Now, for a very small business, you might say, that's okay. We can operate, we can survive for 2 weeks. In a bigger, more busy system, you might not be able to be down for a half a day. An hour could be absolutely devastating. So disaster recovery is all about how fast you want to operate again. And I have, this is a headline from San Francisco. The San Francisco public transportation was hit with ransomware last fall, right on Black Friday. So they got, nothing worked. Nobody could buy fares. So what they had to do was just shut down all their fare buying. So they had everything backed up, and they were bringing up all their systems, but it took the entire weekend. So they weren't able to collect any fares. So fortunately, at least the system could run, but they weren't able to collect any fare and lost millions of dollars as a result of that. So that's a case where they had backup, but they did not have continuity. Really, really important to think that through before. And each business, you can calculate your cost of downtime and then compare that to what it would cost to have a continuity solution in place. And we really strongly advise folks to think that through and have a plan in place before you actually have to face it. All right, and then last on the list of what you can do to help protect yourself is, have you done a security assessment lately? So our advice on this is you should run an assessment at a minimum of every year. Really important is to think about where your protected data is. And just about whenever we go in with a client and start looking, data winds up in places where you don't think it should be. Somebody copies a file to a laptop. People are moving stuff around. You may not be fully aware. If you haven't thought through file sharing, what your rules are on file sharing, you might have had an employee put Dropbox in and your files are, who knows where. Really important to take inventory, take stock, and understand where your protected data is. We advise to cross-check the mass data security law standards as a minimum. We have a worksheet that we can email to you. It's very easy to follow. It says, basically goes through every guideline in the mass data security law, and you can kind of self-assess and work through which ones where you comply and what actions are needed to comply. And that just sort of puts it all in perspective in one place, just a few pages long. So just let us know if you want us to email that. You are required in the mass data security law to have a written information security plan. That's something that we find lacking a lot. People will often be doing all or most of the right things, but they haven't written a plan. It could be one page, just bullets, but you have to have a written information security plan. Have you thought through a bring your own device policy? For example, if users if they're bringing in iPhones, are they allowed to connect to your company network? Are they supposed to be on the guest network? What's your policy? What if they put a computer on the network and they've got a worm type of virus that's going to spread through your entire network? Do you have, what are your guidelines about that? Acceptable use policy. What are folks in your office allowed to do on the internet? Think them through. Start with a simple plan, but think about these things. What's your disaster recovery plan? What's your recovery time objective? How long can you be down? I've had folks tell me, we can get a new server at Staples. You can't get a new server at Staples. You won't be up in an hour. You really need a real plan for that. And then also really something to think through is look through, for example, the Mass Data Security Law checklist will tell you what the required security is. And also really think about what's the responsible level of security within your business. Another really key thing to think about. right, we are trying to wrap up by in the next couple of minutes. I think we said we'd go about 40 minutes. We're just about there. So that's kind of gone through the whole list, but do assess on a regular basis, minimum annual. You can self-assess, you can work with us, go through the checklist, but just take a look at this minimum once a year. So to kind of summarize, really think about security in terms of layers. There's not a single thing that you can do to provide security. You really do have to have multiple layers together, like the bulletproof glass. So it's email security, strong passwords, enforce it with group policy on a server, running your computer security updates, user training. There's a lot of talk right now talking about the human firewall. And that's the user who's sitting in front of a computer making a decision about whether or not they should open an attachment, click on a link. Got to train those users. Advanced security, the antivirus, anti-malware, Cisco Umbrella, how all of that works together, internet gateway. Firewall, you must have a business class firewall. Do not rely on the defaults that your ISP puts into place. If you have an old firewall that you picked up at Staples a couple of years ago, you don't want to be caught with that. Encryption is not the same as password protection, so keep that in mind. Any portable device, we recommend now the newer laptops have native built-in full disk encryption, so it's very easy to use. You won't see a performance hit. Just get that on day one, even if you're not working with protected information on your laptop. The backup, really think through backup versus disaster recovery time objective, very important to think about. And security risk assessment, minimum of once a year. Okay, just wrapping up, many folks have asked us for policy templates, if we have samples of written information security plans, BYOD policies, it's acceptable use. If you do want to take this up a notch, there's a lot of stuff available online that you could take advantage of. We have put together a formal program because folks have asked us, they want to see phishing tests. They want to see a test to see, I wonder if my people are going to click on this. So if you are interested, if you go to Icari.com training, we do have a formal plan in place. If you're interested, if it's a fit for you, this is what it looks like. It's a portal of all the policies and procedures. So you get the templates. You can customize them for your environment. It's a starting point, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's also an education center where folks can take an annual test. You can get certificates. It's a good way of really raising the awareness of security, because security is sort of, it's an asymmetric threat. You put all these layers of protection in place, and then you get one user who clicks on, they're in charge of screening their resumes for a job opening you have, and they click on one that causes ransomware to totally infect your system. That's where the education comes into place, and the phishing tests if you want to see them. So if you do want to do that, we will give one free month of that. So check that out at Icari.com training. We'll give a free month if you sign up by the end of this month. And with that, we're going to wrap up. We're just at the 40-minute mark. Covered a lot of ground. I did press record on this, so hopefully I have a good recording that we can get out to you if you want to review it again. If you want a copy of the slides, I can email you the slides. We can come to your office and do more of an in-place Q&A if you'd like, but we really can't overemphasize the importance of educating the end users. Those are the folks in your organization, and it takes one mistake to kind of cut through. You put all the layers in place so you can protect yourself as best as you can, but those users are going to be making decisions. We also put stuff, notices on Facebook. We have a Twitter feed where we put up a lot of news. It winds up being a lot of cybersecurity stuff on our Twitter feed, and we also have some training on our YouTube channel. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Please, email us if you think of questions later on and you want a copy of the slides. Let us know if you want a copy of the Mass Data Security Law worksheet. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you very much, and I'll be signing off. Thank you.